another bigger area, obviously, with Jeff here with the highways. So we're going to maybe perhaps talk about the highways and road maintenance. I know that if you just want to re-ask your question, that would be great.
It was patched up a while ago, the jet patches, but since then they've actually worn away.
Where are we talking about? Sorry?
Steve-
It's all between
Oh,
the two
yeah.
ramps, the two speed bumps is where it's bad.
Yeah.
It has been getting bad for a couple of years now.
Okay. I know we've done quite a lot of work on Stevenson's Way, and some of that was resurfacing, and some of it was micro asphalting, which is more of a temporary surface.
Yeah.
The micro asphalting that's gone down this year, there are patches of that have come away, and we've spoken to the company that put it down. They're quite content they're going to come back and they're going to make right those patches where there has been problems. So that will happen over the normal course of the contract, that we'll try to put those individual areas right. Is that what you're thinking of?
Yeah, it's just it's been getting worse and worse every year. Every time we get rain, and like snow, we just had the snow.
Yeah.
It's just eating away at the road surface.
Yeah.
Well, what we are going to get now, we've just been through a cold patch. We will get lots of potholes breaking out over the next few weeks. You'll see the roads really deteriorate quite quickly now. Even more. Which is difficult. What we are very good at, and maybe not everyone recognises this, we're very good at fixing potholes and fixing them quickly. So quite often within a couple of hours of somebody reporting a pothole, they'll often say to me, and on my way home it was fixed. Because we have parish wardens in each of the areas who will respond very quickly to those. I think some of the confusion comes when they go along, it's not actually a pothole, but the whole road is beginning to fail. Then we have to go away and plan something. There may be a temporary fix done where there's a particularly dangerous piece of hole, but it's in a road that's basically failing. So we have to just make that temporary fix, but then go away and start planning something a bit more substantial. And the reality is that that's limited by the budget we have each year. So we're trying to allocate that budget to where we see as the priorities, and various ways we develop those, including the structural integrity of the road, the ride quality, the amount of reports of problems we're getting from the public really does feed into that. So we want that feedback because it's an important mechanism for us. But also how busy that road is. Nobody would be surprised that we tend to want to spend more money on the main roads than we will on cul-de-sacs going down to somebody's house. Although I understand completely that that's really frustration for the person that lives in that area. And I know that in terms of life satisfaction, having a road that you feel is reasonably good outside where you live makes a big difference to your well-being. And so as part of the government's drive to work on better places to live, we're really trying to bring that together to say, well, okay, how can we think about people's well-being, not just the major routes. Perhaps in the past we've been a little bit too keen to go into the middle of the countryside and do roads that people would perceive as going to nowhere. I can tell you they're all on the back of complaints, but maybe we need to move away from that, focus slightly more in the town centres where people are living is really important to me, that we help that well-being, we help people feel like they can play, live, walk in the area that they live in. I don't think we've been as good as we should have been in the past on that. And it's about diverting and allocating the funds around that. Over this administration, we've been doggedly trying to use maintenance money for maintenance. And if we want other things, then other monies have to be found for that. And that's been tough because, I'll get a lot of requests from people and politicians who want a new crossing, for example, and we'll come on to a couple that we're doing. But that's not maintenance, that's an enhancement to the network. But traditionally that will be taken away from maintenance money.
So So I've got a couple of questions actually from some constituents, Jeff, and just on the sort of potholes. I have one constituent ask about how technology has moved so much faster in other countries, and you see these vehicles that can fill potholes within 10, 15, 20 minutes, done, move on onto the next. And is that something that we're looking to invest in?
Yeah, I think we already have invested to a certain extent. So we have a machine that will come along, has a nozzle on the front, it will jet into the pothole an emulsion with stone in it. It'll then put a dry stone on top of it. The vehicle then rolls over the top of it. So within a few minutes, a patch will be done. Experience tells us that that patch will only last 6 months, a year, depending on the area. So it's not great, it's quick. So over the next few weeks, when we're probably going to see a big deterioration, we might deploy that to get out there and hit a lot of things quickly. But we know it's not a solution. And also,
and is that then recorded then as a temporary fix, then you'll go back to it to revisit that? Because I think that's one of the frustrations that you see something being done, and the layperson would then believe, okay, that's great, it's done, I can forget about it now, and the next minute we get another email through to say, oh, you won't believe it, but there's potholes back again. So then we're kind of repeating and following up on something that we've already kind of put into the system.
we're in a vicious cycle. And
and so I think that for me would be a real plus if to know that it is actually transferred onto another list, doesn't just get ruled off as completed.
Yes, I think it's something we're getting better at. I'm not going to sit here and say we've been perfect in the past. We haven't, of getting those things captured and put onto a permanent repair list. We are getting much better at that. We put in a stronger management and supervision team in that area to help with that. But we are resource constrained. And potholes are, to an extent, a result of the lack of investment. You get potholes in roads that are coming to the end of their lives unless there's a very specific problem in an area.
So one, I suppose two things that relate to what you just asked. First one is that when we went out on these regional meetings about highways maintenance, more or less every time, more or less all of the reports to the inquiries have been dealt with at that meeting. But sometimes the public might find it frustrating because being dealt with could have been classified as being needing more serious work. And as yet our system doesn't report back to the people that although we haven't come along and fixed that pothole, it's because it's absolutely pointless because the whole of the road is crumbled. And we are in the process as part of this highways maintenance charter discussions that we're having with people, actually getting into a system whereby we actually report that we can't fix that pothole. It's really a waste of time until we do it more widely. So that's one thing. And the second point is, people reporting a pothole is slightly biased as well because it depends on how active that person is making it available. We're trying to use all of these approaches like SCRIM, all the ones that Jeff mentioned. So we actually use the funds that we have and the people that we have rationally according to the actual condition of the road and the like, rather than just responding to whoever shouts loudest as well. So we're trying to do that. So that's
So
the 2
how long
points.
does it take for you to fill a pothole, average size?
Well, so if we use the spray machine, then it can take a few minutes. If we're doing a permanent repair, i.e. the road's in pretty good condition, and we're cutting it out, filling it in, probably half an hour, 30, 40 minutes, the repair can be done. Cost, about £60 to do it, which isn't usually dissimilar to the UK. We have done that comparison and we weren't that different, or certainly we are responsive.
What's your average response time, do you think?
90% of potholes are fixed within 24 hours. So, and that's where people say, but I reported this problem, and actually it may be that it's a wider or a bigger problem. But what we do get is sometimes potholes aren't reported, or it's been there for 3 weeks and then I'll get an email, and when I ask back on the system, no one's actually reported it. So when they are reported, 90% within 24 hours, and that is one of our performance indicators. So
Just to go back to one of the questions you said, answers you gave before about how you're very interested in making sure the well-being of residents is considered, so outside their front door if there's a piece of road or their cul-de-sac perhaps has lacked attention. You're inviting feedback on those areas, because I could quite happily give you some areas which
I might be glutton for punishment here, but from my perspective, it's better to know about it than not.
Because it really is, it's outside your door is where people are more interested. They're not interested sometimes in some of the bigger roads, which I know that might be more of a priority for the department, but you know, when we're talking about the well-being of somebody, then it really is what they can see from your front door.
Just to be clear what Jeff said, you know, the best way to do it is to put it onto the system. Because once it's got a system number, it then is inside our system. If they tell you, the best thing for you to do is to put it onto the system. More and more of the commissioners are putting it onto the system because we've deliberately made this a policy choice to move more people into the control room in Ellerslie to actually control this, so we can actually meet the standards we're setting for ourselves. And now that's why we're now trying to go out to other types of highway maintenance issues, because wouldn't it be great if we actually had a complete asset register with a maintenance schedule prioritised, so that therefore it doesn't, sending an email to the minister is not as valuable as putting it onto the system.
And I agree with that, and I use the Reportix system quite a lot. But I would like to know, when are you thinking about developing that website so you get feedback to say
it's done?
It's done, or there is an answer, or thank you for your
knowledge. Actually, it's not going to be done because there's a wide.
I think it's a communication issue here, isn't it? And managing people's expectations.
That is on the development timeline. One of the reasons we moved away from a slightly older reporting system we had onto the new system is this will integrate with our back office system. So there will be a complete linkage from the guy that goes out or the woman that goes out and fixes the problem, reports back on the tablet, that's now done. We'll get to the point, hopefully this year, where that report that it's now done or has been referred for additional work will actually go back to the person who reported it. If they've said they want to be contacted.
And when you, what sort of year, what time of the year are you looking at? It's like the end of the year, which quarter?
I'm not going to promise anything before the end of the year. IT.
We will come back to you.
IT constantly amazes me.
I tell you what, something that would be really valuable is that at the moment you have to insert an email address before you can move on to the next page. Some people don't want to put their email address, but I haven't put my email address down for people. If you had just allowed the contact number, then they have to receive a phone call back. Does it have to be via email that they have their feedback back? Because I submit my email address for lots of different messages to constituents. Just use my email address. Because at least it can then be logged and reported. Because at the moment, if they haven't got an email address, they can't go to the next page.
Absolutely.
There's a parallel with CALS, you know, the complaint system, which is high profile now, and people know about it and they use it, rather than getting in touch, well, presumably they still do get in touch with their MHKs, but the proper channel for complaints is there and it's high profile.
And it's telephone or email.
All I would say is we don't want to overwork, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to automate the processes as much as possible, and we're trying to keep people on the front line doing work and so on. So all the help you give is really, really appreciated. And you know, I've heard of so many clerks now that they've found that it's incredibly quick just if they help constituents to go and log it officially. So you know, if we can do it by messages, fine. If we can do it, but basically we want to have the process so that it's as efficient as possible. Because you know,
Just
unfortunately, Treasury is very short of money these days.
Manage people's expectations, because you spoke about how you're expecting an influx because of the cold weather snap. Are you anticipating that 24 hours to be the same, or are we looking at it being 48 hours?
Reality
is there a peaks and troughs?
No, it's a really good question, because the reality is we've got a fraction of the staff that we used to have. We have a fraction of the money that we used to have. And the Minister will know in our last divisional meeting, the maintenance manager made the point, and he's quite right. We've had people for a month or so who've been getting out, working all night, going out, salting at 6 o'clock at night, a second shift, getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, going out and salting. They're not able to do a full and proper day the next day. Now, there used to be enough men that the work would still go on during the daytime, but we've really been suffering over the last month or so that the work during the daytime just hasn't been able to progress in the way that we would like. So as long as we get a run of better weather, we will be able to address these breakouts and these problems, and we will get it better fairly quickly. But you know, there will be a deterioration. We will undoubtedly see a slight drop off in performance, but we will recover that.
So what you're saying is the same people that are working at night are the same people doing the jobs, doing the potholes during the day.
I mean, I really take my hat off.
Yeah,
to
well,
them.
yeah, we can't say enough of a thank you to the workers. To be honest, they are working under difficult circumstances, and I think that is recognised.
I'll speak to people, and it'll be 5 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock at night in Ellerslie, and they'll be on the way home having worked all day, and they're due to come back in at 3 in the morning.
Yeah, this
And you're thinking, you know, and they don't have to do that, but they are committed, which is fantastic.
You spoke there of a smaller workforce. Obviously, if we're looking to develop our infrastructure in line with the Island Plan, are you looking, medium to longer term, to increase that workforce, or just go down the route of using contractors more?
An excellent question.
I think I've got to be a little bit realistic, and it's partly political here. So, are we likely to get a large workforce back? Probably not. So, yes, contractors might be helpful. It might be helpful, and it gives a certain amount of flexibility as well. However, at the moment, for the last couple of years, and we did see this coming, we can't get contractors. There aren't enough on island. So we've been, for some time, lobbying that we need to put in place longer-term partnerships with contracting companies so that they know, okay, I've got 5 years' work of doing that kind of work. You know, for instance, putting in bus stops. Might not have the exact list of where, but they know 20 or 30 bus stops a year, £200,000 a year, that I've won that contract. My hope is that then they will be able to invest in their business behind that, to say, okay, I've got a base piece of work there, I can now train some people, I can invest in it, I can perhaps buy more efficient equipment and machinery. Unfortunately, over the years, the way procurement has tended to work has been, it's one job at a time. And it's really hard to have the confidence for a contractor then to invest behind that.
So that's obviously operational inside, so that's
Yeah.
something that can be driven at your level,
Yeah.
you know, to change that operational side, isn't it?
Yeah,
So,
we've been working with Treasury for a few years now to try and bring them round to that approach of saying, no, we need to enter into long-term partnerships.
That's not quite fair though, is it? Claire, because it's also political about your view of outsourcing versus insourcing. That's got a political question to it. And you know, but for them to say it from the other side, that our long-term or medium-term possibility is not only to work with commercial contractors. Conceivably, we could partner with the larger local authorities on this basis, because you know, so there are various options, and that's the sort of thing that we'll also include in our transport strategy. But it's not entirely apolitical. It's not entirely apolitical. You know, it's the same at the airport. There are decisions to be made about insourcing and outsourcing. But I want to make sure that we take, you know, we don't make any assumptions, any politics. And
so obviously coming up to the budget, this is obviously something that we're all going to be looking at, what the budget's going to release and advise as how much is being spent on these areas, because obviously it's a main concern.
Yeah.
Okay, are there any other questions on sort of highways and road maintenance? We're going to move on now.